Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to come to you today with the final installment of the mail haul that I got from Todd at Todd's Bursting Bookcase. Back in late July, early August, he sent me a package that included 2 good-sized boxes of books. And I didn't count the overall number. Let's see, there's probably 25, 30 books in the whole that he sent me. And I'm very, very appreciative of that. Thank you, Todd, so much for your generosity. I really enjoy, just looking at the different titles, because a lot of these I probably wouldn't have seen in my used bookstore that I go to. And so it's just nice to get these in. He's been really, really building on my World War II side of my studies on World War II. I have not read. It's not my what I'm the best at. If you follow the channel, I read mostly in Civil War and the American Revolution. Those are I do big units in class about this. I build my entire 8th grade class around those 2 items. Everything's a build up to the Revolution in the first semester, and then everything else in the second semester is a build up to the Civil War. And so, that's really where my studies are centered the most on. And but I do a unit in my 7th grade class about World War I and World War II. I really like World War I, but I'm really getting to where I like World War II as well. There's so much new stuff in World War I. It's a changeover in technologies. But then in World War II, it is, I think, one of the, I don't want to say final triumphs over the ultimate evils, but because we've still got a lot of evils today. But it was definitely a time period that we have to mark on the history timeline. You can't skip World War II, and it's a world event. And so for me, I'm glad that I'm getting these books, because it's really building that knowledge and helping me to explain to the kids a little bit better that part of the overall world history story. And so anyway, thank you, Todd. I really appreciate it. And in the last video that I did, the last book haul or mail haul video I did about Todd, I mentioned, and I want to mention it again, that Todd did a very unique video yesterday about his favorite author from Minnesota. And I thought that was really neat. We started even getting ideas flowing in my head about what could I do that might be kind of similar to that. But I don't know that I could do it as well as he did. He did a cemetery walk and walked you to the grave of his favorite Minnesota author. And so it was just a really unique video, kind of cool, short, sweet, to the point. But it gives you a little history of the author, and then shows you his final resting spot. So I just thought that was neat, Todd. Thank you for sharing that. And I would say you guys all out there need to go visit that or go watch that video. So without further ado, let's look at this stack of books, and it looks like all of these are World War II. So if you are not wanting to see World War II titles, maybe go find another one of my videos. But I hope you stay here. Hope you enjoy this. So let's go ahead and get started. First one is Decision and Dissent with Halsey at Layette Golf by Carl Solberg. And kind of got Halsey's got kind of a sobering look on his face there in that photo, but nice yellow cover, very distinct, stands out. This is a, this is a Naval Institute Press from Annapolis, Maryland, and it came out in 1995. So let me read that front cover to you so you can see what you'll be dipping into, or what I'll be dipping into anyway. In October of 1944, the author of this book, Carl Solberg, was serving in the Pacific as a young air combat intelligence officer on Admiral William F. Halsey's flagship, New Jersey, as 3 Japanese fleets converged on the Philippines for one of the largest and most complex naval battles of World War II. As Solberg recalls in this compelling memoir, the Japanese Navy's master plan for repelling the American invasions had just been captured, translated, copied, and interpreted. But we know now, not fully understood, reportedly Admiral Halsey had seen the document and ignored it. Solberg explains that his roommate, Lieutenant Harris Cox, pored over the plan for several nights, and with Solberg suddenly came to realize what the enemy's big surface ships were up to at Leyte Gulf. The two young intelligence officers urgently tried to warn the admiral on the night of the 24th of October that by going north after the Japanese carriers, he was doing exactly what the enemy wanted him to do. But Halsey had already retired for the night, and their message never got through to him. Had it been heeded, their warning might have had a significant impact on the battle. This book offers new insights into the events that led to Halsey's controversial decision to send Task Force 34 north and provides a better understanding of what happened that night. Solberg takes the reader on a journey of Pacific intelligence operations, traveling back and forth across the Pope's line that divided Halsey's domain from that of General MacArthur's to give a detailed picture of the decisions made and the events that took place. He also traces the events of the air combat intelligence units in the U.S. Navy born of the new requirements created by war waged in the air. So this will be really good because my knowledge of the Pacific and what went on is pretty limited. My World War II knowledge is probably better in Europe than it is in the Pacific. It's not that I don't find the Pacific interesting. I just have not read a lot. So this should really help me in that endeavor. Again, it's a pretty slim volume. It's only, let's see here. It's just over 203 pages. So that'll be probably a quick read, I imagine, and a good insider's look at what was going on out there in the Pacific. So next book. This one looked very interesting. It is, and I'm going to probably butcher how this is supposed to be pronounced, so forgive me, La Parisiennes, How the Women of Paris Lived, Loved, and Died Under Nazi Occupation. And so please, again, forgive me for butchering the title. I'm not real good with foreign languages. Some would say I'm not real good with English either, but hey, that's life. Anyway, here's the end pages of this book. That is really cool. I really like that. I think that is very unique. That's one side. Nope, same picture on the other. But this is a St. Martin's Press out of New York, and it is from 2016. And I think I forgot to say the author, Anne Seba, or Seba, however you pronounce that. But says on the inside cover here, it says, Paris in the 1940s was a place of fear, power, aggression, courage, deprivation, and secrets. During the occupation, the swastika flew from the Eiffel Tower, and danger lurked on every corner. While Parisian men were either fighting at the front or captured and forced to work in German factories, the women of Paris were left behind, where they would come face to face with German conquerors on a daily basis. As waitresses, shop assistants, or wives and mothers, increasingly desperate to find food and feed their families as hunger became part of the everyday life. When the Nazis and the puppet Vichy regime began rounding up Jews to ship east to concentration camps, the full horror of the war was brought home, and the choice between collaboration and resistance became unavoidable. Seba focuses on the role of women, many of whom faced life and death decisions every day. And after the war ended, there would be a fierce settling of accounts between those who made peace with or worse, helped the occupiers, and those who fought the Nazis in any way they could. This is one of those histories that I find very, very interesting. It is the women's side of this, and women get skipped over so much in history, and it kind of bugs me because they shouldn't be. But it gives you the other side of the coin. What was life like? What was life like on the home front for those who were left behind in this war? And I think, to me, that's one of the I find that just as interesting as the battlefields. I think it's very, very interesting to look at. And I think the same thing when I study the American Revolution and the Civil War. Life back in the towns, not on the battlefront, but back in the towns. I think that's very interesting, and seeing the women's perspectives of that and how they just fought for survival. So, next book is Hitler's Ardennes Offensive, the German View of the Battle of the Bulge. This is edited by Danny S. Parker, and it's a selection of the Military Book Club. So it's from Green Hill Books. That's kind of neat. Give you a different perspective. Always good to get different perspectives. So like I said, Green Hill Books out of London, MBI Publishing from St. Paul, and it is a 2006 book, 2006, and I'll read the back cover. It's pretty short. It says, Hitler's Ardennes Offensive is a unique work giving an unparalleled insight into the German view of the action known to Germany as Wacht am Rhein, and to the Allies as the Battle of the Bulge. The book vividly recounts how Hitler and his generals perceived the progress and the ultimate failure of their final great assault. The Ardennes offensive in December of 1944 surprised the Allies with its ferocity and was intended to turn the course of the war in Germany's favor. Numerous subsequent accounts of the battle have tended toward the perspective of the Allied victors, lacking the first-hand detail about German intentions and operations. Now, for the first time in a single volume, historian Danny S. Parker has brought together many rare documents representing the views of all the major personalities within the German Army headquarters. These include Obergruppenführer Joseph Dietrich and General Major Fritz Kramer, General Hasso von Manteuffel, and General Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, and others. So that'll be interesting, getting the German perspective on things. And it looks like it's a bunch of reports that have been put together. And so you'll get like the first-hand accounts. Looks like some primary sources. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, we'll see. That'll be pretty interesting. It's got some good maps in there, so you can follow the battlefields. There's another one there. So that'll be good. That'll be good. I do apologize for my butchering of the German language in that. Please forgive me. So let's just move on before I make it worse. The next book is Hawaii Under the Rising Sun, Japan's Plans for Conquest After Pearl Harbor. And this is by John F. Stephen. Kind of a cool cover. You got the Japanese flag there, and you got Hawaii in the background. What were they going to do once they captured it? That is essentially what I believe this book is all about. And this comes from the University of Hawaii Press out of Honolulu. And it is a 1984 book, as you could have probably guessed from the cover. Most of the 1980s books look something like that. So this one says, the seizure of the Hawaiian Islands, America's main outpost in the Pacific, was to have been the most ambitious and far-reaching Japanese operation of World War II. Hawaii Under the Rising Sun, the hitherto untold story of Japanese planning for invasion and occupation, is compelling reading for those interested in modern Japan, World War II, Hawaii, and the experiences of Japanese Americans, as well as for anyone who appreciates an absorbing narrative. Conceived by officers on the staff of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, Combined Fleet Commander, and the invasion of Hawaii was seen as a supreme blow that in one stroke would preclude an American counteroffensive, force President Roosevelt to the peace table, and guarantee Japan's future security in the Pacific Basin. The combined fleet's struggle between December 1941 and May of 42 to convince the Army and Navy general staffs of the necessity to invade Hawaii reveals much about the formulation of war strategy and the problems of inter-service relations. The circumstances under which Japan's armed forces agreed to undertake and then abandoned An assault on Hawaii sheds new light on the ill-fated Midway operation. While the military planned for an invasion, civilians prepared scenarios of Hawaii under Japanese rule. Special concerns were restructuring the economy, reforming the society, and laying the basis for the new political administration. Revival of the Hawaiian monarchy, the re-identification of potential collaborators, and the re-education of Americans of Japanese ancestry were among the topics discussed. Recommendations for Hawaii's anticipated role in the greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere provide an illuminating glimpse of Japan's perceptions of the post-war Pacific Basin. This book is the product of John Stevens' extensive research in Japan's military archives, as well as in pre-war and wartime Japanese literature about Hawaii, including Hawaii's Japanese language press. Professor Stevens also interviewed former Imperial Navy officers and Japanese wartime authors. With Hawaii Under the Rising Sun, scholar-writer John Stevens introduces a new and important field of historical research while correcting commonly held misconceptions about Japan's intentions in the Pacific Basin during World War II. This is a first-rate history, superbly told but with grace and clarity. And here's our author, John F. Stevens there. Yeah, this looks like it'll be very, very interesting. Again, another subject that I don't think I've ever read anything on this, and it's a pretty short book. I could probably knock it out pretty quick. It's 177 pages, so it's always good to get some of these shorter novels along with the big bricks that I usually get. The next book in the stack got a pretty awesome cover on it. I like the look of it anyway, and it's The Trial of Adolf Hitler, The Beer Hall Putsch, and The Rise of Nazi Germany by David King. Okay, and there's your cover. And this is a book from W.W. Norton and Company. It's out of New York, and it is a 2017 book, so a fairly new book, fairly new title. It's got plenty of pictures of documents and just wartime pictures. And this goes to the early part of the Nazi regime, of course. And so this will be pretty good reading, I think, as far as learning how everything got started and just early Hitler as far as being a politician. But anyway, I'm not going to read the cover to you because I think it's pretty self-explanatory, talking about the trial and how Nazi Germany kind of rose out of that. The next book, a little bit thicker and heavier. This is Hitler's Willing Executioners, Ordinary Germans in the Holocaust by Daniel Jonah Goldhagen. Kind of a neat cover also. I really like those when they've got the actual photos and the or paintings. I just love those type of covers. All right, and this is from Alfred A. Knopf out of New York, and it's a 1996 book. This one says, go ahead and read this one to you. A work of the utmost originality and importance. As authoritative as it is explosive, that radically transforms our understanding of the Holocaust and of Germany during the Nazi period. Daniel Goldhagen has revisited a question that history has come to treat as settled, and his researches have led him to inescapable conclusion that none of the established answers holds true. That question is, how could the Holocaust happen? His own response is a new exploration of those who carried out the Holocaust and of German society and its ingrained anti-Semitism, and it demands a fundamental revision of our thinking about the years 1933 to 45. I think this is going to be very, very enlightening, and that's always the question my middle school kids have, is how could that have happened? How could they have even followed Hitler? If they all knew he was a bad guy, how did that happen? And so I think this is going to be really good for my, building my knowledge and helping to explain that answer that question, explain the answers to the kids. So drawing principally on materials either unexplored or neglected by previous scholars, Goldhagen marshals new, disquieting primary evidence, including extensive testimony from the actual perpetrators themselves, to show, that many beliefs about the killers are fallacies. They were not primarily SS men or Nazi Party members, but perfectly ordinary Germans from all walks of life, men and women who brutalized and murdered Jews both willingly and zealously. They did so, moreover, not because they were coerced, for as he shows irrefutably, so many were informed by their own commanders that they could refuse to kill without fear of retribution. Yeah, I'll have to read that, and we'll see how he proves that. Not because they slavishly followed orders, a view seemingly supported by Stanley Milgram's famous Yale obedience experiment, not because of any tremendous social, psychological, or peer pressure to conform to the behavior of their comrades, for no such evidence exists, and not for any reasons associated with Hannah Arendt's disputed notion of the banality of evil. They acted as they did because of a widespread, profound, unquestioned, virulent anti-Semitism that led to the regard that Jews as a demonic enemy whose extermination was not only necessary but also just. Again and again, it is the killer's own words that gives us a portrait, both shocking and immediate, of their world, the organization of their daily lives, and how they did what they did, their reactions to it, even the recreations in the killing fields, which included everything from sports and entertainment to the hobby of taking snapshots of their deeds and victims, to be freely exchanged and collected among themselves, leaving a devastating record of self-indictment that the author reproduces here. So I'm going to stop reading. This is going to be, I don't know if I'll be able to read this all the way through in one shot. This is, I think, going to be very eye-opening. It'll be interesting to see what his arguments are. But yeah, I might have to read that in multiple sittings. I won't be able to do that all and straight through. It's going to be, I think it's going to be very, very disturbing, really. So anyway, I think all of this can be disturbing. Jeez. Anyway, the next book is The Untold Story of the Secret American and the German Collaboration to End World War II. It's Alliance of Enemies. And I guess that was the title, and then that was this. I flip-flopped the subtitle. So let me start over. Let me try that again. Alliance of Enemies, The Untold Story of the Secret American and German Collaboration to End World War II. And this is by Augustino von Hassel and Sigrid McCrae. Okay, there's that one. And this is, let's see. This is from Thomas Dunn Books from St. Martin's Press out of New York. And it is a 2006 book. So I'll go ahead and read this real fast, and then we only have one more book left. So this is Alliance of Enemies, tells the thrilling history of the secret World War II relationship between Nazi Germany's espionage service, the Abwehr, and the American OSS, predecessor of the CIA. The actors in this great, as yet untold story were often at odds with their respective governments, working in the face of competing ideologies and at great personal risk. These unorthodox collaborators struggled to bring about an early peace. By mining secret World War II files that were only recently declassified, as well as personal interviews, diaries, and previously unpublished accounts to unearth some of history's surprises, Augustino von Hassel and Sigrid McCrae shed new light on Franklin Roosevelt's surprising stance toward Hitler before the United States entered the war, and on the relationship of American business to the Third Reich. They offer details on the German resistance's desperate effort to at first avert war and then to make common cause with enemy representatives to end it. And then their work details the scope and depth of the German resistance and why its many plots to eliminate Hitler and why it failed. New names and incredible wartime plots reveal the titanic power struggles that took place in Istanbul and Lisbon, cities crawling with spies, intense clandestine communications, and spy rings come clear, as do the self-serving neutrality of the Switzerland and Portugal and the shocking post-war scramble for German spies, scientists, and more, all to aid in the fight against a new enemy, communism. Alliance of enemies fills a huge void in our knowledge of the hidden, layered warfare and the attempts for peace of World War II. It will fascinate and excite historians, spy and policy enthusiasts, and anyone concerned with the uses of intelligence in trying times. Nowhere has such a complete and provocative history of the war behind World War II been told until now. So that'll be, I think, an interesting read. That's Alliance of Enemies. And now, the last book. Last book in the stack is Hitler's Secret Army, A Hidden History of Spies, Saboteurs, and Traitors in World War II by Tim Tate. Kind of an interesting cover. And if you roll it around, you get the other side of the soldier's uniform. That's actually kind of neat. Pretty interesting. Anyway, I guess I didn't show you the thing there. So, this is from Pegasus Books out of New York, and 2019. So a fairly new book. Go ahead and read this last cover to you, and then we'll wrap this up. So it says, between 1939 and 1945, more than 70 Allied men and women were convicted, mostly in secret trials, of working to help Nazi Germany win the war. In the same period, hundreds of British fascists were also interned without trial on specific detailed evidence that they were spying for Germany. Collectively, these men and women were part of a little-known fifth column, traitors who committed crimes including espionage, sabotage, communicating with the enemy intelligence agents, and attempting to cause disaffection amongst Allied troops. 4 of these traitors were sentenced to death. 2 were executed, while most of the others received lengthy prison sentences or were interred throughout the war. Hundreds of official files released in remarkably haphazard fashion between 2002 and 2017 reveal the truth about the traitors who formed these espionage spies. Most were ardent fascists, all willingly betrayed their own country in the hope and anticipation of a German victory. Several were part of the international espionage rings based in the United States. If these men and women were, for the most part, lone wolves or members of small networks, others were much more dangerous. In 1940, during some of the darkest days of the war, 2 well-connected British Nazi sympathizers planned overlapping conspiracies to bring about a fascist revolution. These plots were foiled by Allied spy masters through radical and often contentious methods of investigation. Its agents set up elaborate sting operations that uncovered scores of Nazi sympathizers seeking to pass military and defense secrets to the enemy. So that sounds like it'll be, pretty interesting. It does have quite a few photos in the middle here of everybody being talked about. So that is, let's see, Jesse Jordan, and then, I'll just show you, just give you a face for the people they're talking about within the book. So pretty excited about all of these World War II books. This is definitely going to, add to my knowledge. I do want to give a little pet peeve, though, with, I guess, the publisher or whoever created the covers of this. I want you to look at this text. Do you see that? My lighting is not the best in here. I got an overhead light, but it's not like bright. And if you see that text, I love the text font, or the font that's used, except for that font needs to be in bold, because with a black background and very, very skinny letters, it is hard to read. So I apologize for my stuttering and stammering on some of these books. It's the font's fault. The font needs to be either bigger or in bold. But anyway, that's my old man eye complaint. BookTube. Thank you for watching. I hope you stuck with me for almost 30 minutes. Holy moly. So I better get this all wrapped up. Thank you for watching. Again, go check out Todd's Bursting Bookcase. He is the very kind man who sent me a lot of books. So I really appreciate that. Go check out his video on his favorite author of Minnesota. Hope everyone's having a great day. Hope the weather's working well for you so you can get some outdoor stuff done. And hope you're getting a lot of reading done. So until next time, happy reading.